The freezing wind of Chicago howled against the thick glass of the black SUV. Sleet hit the window like tiny bullets. Inside, the car smelled of expensive leather, cigar smoke, and the heavy perfume of the woman leaning against Kang Dong-soo. Alina ran her sharp red nails up his thigh. She was the sister of the biggest human trafficker in the Midwest. Dong-soo had spent 2 years eating shit, bleeding, and lying to get into this exact seat. 2 years of playing a monster so he could cut the head off the snake. "You are so quiet tonight," Alina whispered. She bit his earlobe. "Thinking about my brother's meeting." Dong-soo forced a smirk. He grabbed her knee, squeezing just hard enough to make her gasp. "Just thinking about making money, baby." "Fuck the money," she purred, pressing closer. In the front seat, Marco, a huge man with a neck tattoo of a snake, laughed. "Leave the man alone, Alina. We got business." The SUV rolled to a stop at a red light on Michigan Avenue. The streets were almost empty because of the storm. People were smart enough to stay inside, but not everyone had a choice. Dong-soo looked out the window. The sleet was turning into heavy snow. Under the harsh orange glow of a street lamp, a woman stood by the crosswalk. She was wrapped in a dirty gray blanket. Her shoes were worn out, wrapped in plastic bags to keep the wet out. She held a piece of wet cardboard that was too smeared to read. She was shaking so hard her whole body jerked. Dong-soo's breath caught in his throat. The world went totally silent. His blood turned to ice, colder than the Chicago wind outside. It was Adesuwa. No, it couldn't be. He squeezed his eyes shut and opened them again. It was her, the dark brown skin he used to kiss every morning, now pale and gray from the cold. The tight curls he used to wrap his fingers in, now matted and hidden under a filthy hood. This was the woman he loved. The woman he proposed to. The woman he gave up his life for, putting her into the FBI's absolute highest witness protection program so she would be safe forever. What the fuck was she doing on a street corner in Chicago begging for change? Marco pointed a thick finger at the window. "Hey, check out that piece of trash on the corner. Looks like she's about to freeze to death." Vinny leaned over the steering wheel. A sick, dirty grin spread across his face. "Boss needs fresh meat for the shipping containers tomorrow. Nobody is gonna miss a street rat." Vinny reached for the door handle. "I'll grab her. Take 2 seconds." Dong-soo's heart slammed against his ribs. Before we go on, if you're enjoying this dark story, please leave a like on this video. It really helps the algorithm push more videos like this to you so we can keep giving you the best audiobooks. Let me know in the comments right now, what city or country are you watching from? And listen to me very carefully. If you don't hit that subscribe button for Afro-Korean Love FM right now, you might leave Adesuwa to be dragged into that dark van to be sold forever. Do not be the reason she loses all hope. Hit subscribe and save her. Dong-soo's hand shot out. He grabbed the back of Vinny's thick neck and squeezed tight. He dug his thumb right into the nerve below the skull. Vinny let out a sharp grunt and dropped his hand from the door handle. "What the fuck is your problem, Dong-soo?" Vinny barked, twisting around in his seat. His eyes were wide and angry. Dong-soo kept his face completely blank. He let go of Vinny's neck and wiped his hand on his dark jeans, acting like Vinny was covered in dirt. "Are you stupid?" Dong-soo asked. His voice was a low, slow drawl. "Look at her." Marco frowned from the passenger seat. "Look at what? She's got all her teeth. Give her a bath and the buyers will pay top dollar." "She is covered in sores," Dong-soo lied. He didn't even know if she was, but he had to make them disgusted. He pointed a firm finger at the window. "Look at her hands. Look at her mouth. You put a 6th Street rat in the back of the truck, she infects the whole cargo. You want to explain to your boss why you ruined $500,000 of fresh product because you picked up some diseased trash off a corner." Alina leaned over him, her breast pressing hard against his arm. She looked out the window and wrinkled her nose in pure disgust. "He is right, Vinny. She smells from here. I don't want that dirty bitch in my car." "We don't put her in the seat, princess. We throw her in the trunk," Vinny argued, but he wasn't reaching for the door anymore. "Boss said we are short on the quota." Dong-soo felt the panic rising hot into his throat. He wanted to pull out his gun and put a bullet right between Vinny's eyes. He wanted to blow Marco's head off, grab Alina by her expensive hair, and smash her face into the dashboard. He wanted to jump out into the freezing snow, wrap his heavy coat around Adesuwa, and carry her far away from this hell. But he could not do any of that. If he shot them now, the boss would vanish. The whole trafficking ring would go underground. 2 years of his life gone, and worse, they would hunt him and Adesuwa down and cut them into tiny pieces. He had to play the monster. I said no, Dong-soo growled. He leaned forward so his face was inches from Vinny's ear. You touch that door handle again, and I will break your arm. We only bring high-quality product to the boss, not walking diseases. Vinny glared at him. The tension in the car was so thick it was hard to breathe. Finally, Vinny muttered, "Fuck you, man. Fine, but you tell the boss why we are short." "I'll tell him you are a dumbass who doesn't know how to run a clean business," Dong-soo said. The light turned green, but the car in front of them was stalled in the heavy snow. Vinny slammed his hand on the horn. A loud, harsh sound ripped through the quiet street. Outside, the loud horn made Adesuwa jump. She dropped her wet piece of cardboard. She bent down with shaking hands to pick it up. The wind blew her hood back. Dong-soo's chest tightened fast. Her face was so thin, her cheekbones stuck out like sharp rocks. She had a dark, nasty bruise under her left eye. It looked like someone had hit her hard. Who hit her? Who the fuck touched her? His hands closed into tight fists. He pressed his nails into his palms so hard the skin almost broke. She looked up at the black SUV. Dong-soo did not look away. He couldn't. Through the glass, her tired, broken eyes met his. For a second, she just stared. She was probably used to rich people looking at her with total disgust. But then her eyes went super wide. Her mouth opened. The cardboard slipped right out of her freezing fingers and fell into the dirty gray slush on the road. She knew him. Even with his hair slicked back, even with the dark clothes and the cold, hard look on his face, she knew it was him. Dong-soo saw the exact moment her heart shattered. He saw the hot tears fill her big brown eyes. She took a step toward the car. Her lips moved. He couldn't hear her through the thick glass, but he could read her mouth. She was saying his name. She thought he was dead. The FBI had told her he died in a car crash. That was the only way to get her into witness protection without her trying to come back for him. She had cried for him. She had mourned him. And now, here he was, sitting in a luxury SUV with another woman touching his leg, hanging out with the exact kind of men who used to torture her. What the fuck is she looking at? Elena snapped. She tapped her sharp red nail against the glass. Why is she walking over here? Adesuwa was walking toward the car. She was shivering badly, holding her dirty blanket around her thin shoulders. She looked like she was in a trance. She was walking right toward his door. If she reached the door, if she said his name out loud, if she showed these dangerous men that she knew him, they would all be dead by tomorrow morning. "Vinny, move the damn car," Dong-soo ordered. His voice was suddenly loud and rough. "I can't, the guy in front is stuck on the ice," Vinny yelled back. Adesuwa was only 5 feet away, 3 feet. Dong-soo had to break her heart. He had to make her run away. Now. He reached for the window button. The glass rolled down with a soft hum. The freezing wind slapped him in the face instantly. Snow blew into the warm car, landing on Alina's expensive dress. "Hey, what are you doing? It's freezing," Alina screamed. Dong-soo ignored her. He looked right into Adesuwa's eyes. She stopped walking. She was standing right outside his window. The cold air smelled like wet trash and exhaust fumes. She was close enough to touch. He could see the purple bags under her eyes. He could see the way her bottom lip was split open and bleeding. "Dong-soo," she whispered. Her voice was cracked and weak. It sounded like she hadn't had water in days. Is it really you?" Marco turned around in the front seat. He looked totally confused. "She talking to you, D?" Dong-soo stared at the only woman he ever loved. He forced his face to turn into a mask of pure hate. He curled his lip up in a nasty sneer. "Get the fuck away from my car, you dirty bitch," Dong-soo spat. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. Adesuwa flinched like he had slapped her right across the face. Her whole body shook. She took a fast step back, slipping a little on the wet ice. "What?" she gasped. Tears started to roll down her cold cheeks. "Dong-soo, it's me. It's Suwa, please." "I don't know you, you crazy whore," Dong-soo yelled louder. He made sure Marco and Vinny heard every single word. "Don't touch my car. You smell like pure shit. Get back to the gutter where you belong before I step out there and break your jaw." Elena laughed from beside him. "Tell her, baby, gross." Adesuwa stared at him. The hope in her eyes died completely. It was replaced by a look of total terror and deep, crushing pain. She wrapped her thin arms around her stomach. She looked down at his nice clothes, at the expensive watch on his wrist, and at Alina laughing next to him. She nodded slowly. A quiet, broken sob escaped her throat. She turned around and started to run. She was limping. Her right leg dragged a little in the deep snow. She ran back toward the dark alley, slipping and stumbling until the shadows completely swallowed her up. Dong-soo rolled the window back up. The warm air rushed back into the car, but he felt nothing but cold. A deep, sick cold deep in his bones. "Damn D," Marco laughed loud. "You didn't have to go that hard. She was just begging for change." Dong-soo leaned back against the leather seat. He stared straight ahead at the red taillights of the car in front of them. "I hate beggars," he lied. His voice was completely flat and dead. "They make me sick." Alina smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. "You are so mean. I like it." The car in front of them finally moved. Vinny hit the gas, and the black SUV rolled forward, leaving the corner behind. Dong-soo sat perfectly still in the dark car. He could still hear her broken sob echoing in his head. He had saved her life today, but he knew he just killed her soul. And the worst part was, he didn't know how the hell she got out of witness protection. Someone had betrayed her, someone high up. He closed his eyes for just a second. He made a silent promise to the dark night. He was going to finish this job. He was going to kill the boss. And then, he was going to find Adesuwa, and he was going to burn down the entire world to make things right. The black SUV crawled like a slow, heavy metal bug through the thick Chicago snow. Vinny kept cursing loudly at the windshield wipers. They were freezing to the glass, making a terrible squeaking noise. In the back seat, Alina rested her head on Dong-soo's chest. She smelled like heavy vanilla perfume and expensive vodka. Right now, that sweet smell made him want to throw up. Every time he took a breath, he felt a sharp, stabbing pain in his chest. His mind was stuck on a terrible loop. He kept seeing Adesuwa's face. He kept seeing the dark purple bruise under her eye. He kept hearing the wet, heavy sound of her boots dragging in the snow as she ran away from him. He had to keep his face completely blank. If his jaw tightened, Alina would feel it. If his heart beat too fast, she would notice. He forced his hand to slowly stroke her soft hair. He stared out the window at the dark, frozen city. He wanted to kill every single person in this car. He wanted to pull his heavy gun from his shoulder holster, put a bullet in Vinny's fat neck, shoot Marco in the side of the head, and strangle Alina until her eyes popped out. But he did nothing. He just sat there and played his part. He was Kang Dong-soo, the cold, heartless money man for the cartel. 20 minutes later, the SUV turned down a dark, broken road near the shipping yards. There were no streetlights here. Just massive walls of rusty metal containers stacked on top of each other. The Chicago River was right next to them, completely frozen solid. The wind hit the car so hard it actually shook the heavy doors. Vinny pulled up to a giant metal building. Two men holding assault rifles stepped out of the shadows. They wore black ski masks and heavy military jackets. Vinny flashed the headlights twice. The men lowered their guns and grabbed a heavy steel chain, pulling the main warehouse door open with a loud groan. "Finally," Alina complained. She sat up and stretched her arms, rubbing her eyes. "I am freezing. Let's go see my brother and get this over with. I want to go to the club and get a real drink." Dong-soo opened his door and stepped out into the freezing wind. The cold hit him like a punch to the face. The ground was covered in dirty, black ice. He pulled his thick wool coat tight around his body. Marco and Vinny got out next. Marco hawked up a huge glob of spit and shot it onto the pure white snow. They walked inside the giant warehouse. The smell hit Dong-soo instantly. It was the smell of old blood, cheap bleach, and pure human fear. It was a smell he had lived with for 2 years, and he never got used to it. Under the bright, harsh lights hanging from the ceiling, there were 4 large metal cages. Inside the cages were women. Some were crying quietly, their shoulders shaking. Some were just staring at the dirty concrete floor with completely dead eyes. They were huddled together in thin clothes, trying to stay warm. Dong-soo looked at them, and his stomach tied into a hard knot. If he had not stopped Vinny from opening the car door, Adesuwa would be in one of those cages right now. She would be sitting on the freezing floor, waiting to be packed into a shipping container and sold to the highest bidder. The thought made his hands shake. He shoved his hands deep into his coat pockets so no one would see. Roman was standing near a folding metal table in the middle of the room. He was Alina's older brother and the boss of the whole Midwest operation. He wore a long camel hair coat and smoked a thick brown cigar. He was looking at a dirty paper ledger. When he heard them walk up, he dropped the cigar on the ground and crushed it under his expensive leather shoe. "You are late," Roman said. His voice was deep and scratchy. He did not look happy. "Blame Vinny," Dong-soo said. He kept his voice lazy and bored. "He drives like a blind old woman in the snow. I told him to step on it, but he was scared of a little ice." Vinny turned red. "Fuck you, the roads are pure ice. We got stuck behind some idiot at a red light." Roman laughed a harsh, ugly laugh. He walked over to Alina and kissed her on both cheeks. Then he looked at Dong-soo. "Did you bring the payment schedules?" "Of course," Dong-soo said. He pulled a thick folded envelope from his inner pocket and tossed it onto the metal table. "All the buyers are lined up. The money will hit the offshore accounts as soon as the containers are loaded onto the trucks." Roman nodded. He picked up the envelope and tapped it against his hand. He looked past Dong-soo, pointing his chin at the cages. "Good, because we have a lot of product moving tonight. The buyers in Canada are paying double for fresh faces. We need to load them up by midnight before the blizzard shuts the highways down completely." Dong-soo looked at the cages again. A young girl with blonde hair was holding onto the metal bars, crying silently. He forced himself to look away. He looked right into Roman's dark eyes. "The snow is getting worse," Dong-soo said flatly. "If we move the trucks at midnight, we might run into the state cops. They set up emergency checkpoints when the weather gets this bad to stop drunk drivers. If a cop pulls over one of our trucks to check for chains on the tires, and he hears crying inside the box, we are completely fucked." Roman frowned. He rubbed his thick black beard. "So what do you suggest, Dong-soo?" "I suggest I go check the south route right now," Dong-soo lied smoothly. "I will drive the exact path the trucks are going to take. I will see where the cops are sitting. If the road is clear, I will call you and you send the trucks. If it's hot, we wait until tomorrow morning." Roman thought about it for a few seconds. Then he nodded slowly. "Smart. That is why I pay you so much money. Do you always use your brain? Go, call me in an hour." Alina grabbed Dong-soo's arm. "I will come with you. I am bored here." "No," Dong-soo said sharply. He caught himself and softened his voice. He reached out and touched her cold cheek. "It is going to be a boring drive, baby. Just looking at snow and cops. Stay here where it is safe with your brother. I will come to your apartment when I am done. Have a drink waiting for me." Alina smiled and leaned into his hand. "Fine, but don't take too long. I hate sleeping alone." Dong-soo turned around and walked toward the exit. He didn't walk fast. He walked with a slow, confident swagger. He nodded at the men with the guns as they opened the small side door for him. He stepped out into the freezing storm. As soon as the heavy metal door clicked shut behind him, his calm mask completely broke. He ran. He sprinted through the deep snow, slipping on the ice, until he reached his own car parked behind a stack of wooden pallets. It was a black Dodge sedan. He grabbed the door handle, ripped it open, and threw himself into the driver's seat. He slammed the door shut. The silence inside the car was heavy. For 5 seconds, Dong-soo just sat there in the freezing dark. Then he lost his mind. "Fuck," he screamed at the top of his lungs. He punched the steering wheel with his bare fist. He punched it again and again until his knuckles started to bleed. "Fuck, shit, god damn it." He grabbed his own hair and pulled it hard. His chest was heaving up and down. He couldn't breathe. The image of Adesuwa's broken face was burning a hole in his brain. The way she had whispered his name. The way she looked so small and sick. He dug his shaking hand into a secret hole under the driver's seat. He pulled out a cheap plastic cell phone, a burner phone. He turned it on and waited for the screen to light up. His hands were shaking so bad he almost dropped it. He dialed a string of numbers from memory and put the phone to his ear. It rang twice. "Yeah," a voice answered. It was Agent Miller, his handler at the FBI, the only man in the world who knew Dong-soo's real identity. "We have a leak," Dong-soo growled into the phone. His voice was shaking with pure rage. Miller paused. The sound of a television playing in the background suddenly went quiet. "What are you talking about? Are you safe? Did Roman find out who you are?" "No, you stupid piece of shit," Dong-soo hissed. He pressed the phone so hard against his ear it hurt. I just saw her. I just saw Adesuwa. What? Miller said. He sounded completely confused. Dong-soo, you're crazy. The stress is getting to you. Adesuwa is in Omaha. She is living in a nice apartment. She works at a library. She is completely safe. She is in Chicago, Dong-soo yelled. He hit the dashboard with his bloody fist. She was begging on a street corner. She was wearing fucking plastic bags on her feet, Miller. Someone beat her. Someone hit her in the face. What did you people do to her? Listen to me, calm down, Miller ordered, but his voice was shaking now too. That is impossible. The witness protection program is flawless. Only 3 people in the entire bureau even have her file number. Let me log into the system right now and check her status. Do not touch that computer, Dong-soo screamed. If someone sold her out, they put a flag on her file. If you search her name, the mole will see you looking. They will know I am still alive. They will know she is a loose end. You don't do anything. You don't tell anyone. Dong-soo, you can't break your cover. We are 3 days away from Roman moving the biggest shipment of the year. We are going to arrest 50 guys on Sunday. If you do something crazy now, you ruin 2 years of work. Hundreds of women will die. I don't give a fuck about the shipment right now, Dong-soo said. His voice dropped to a cold, dead whisper. She thought I was dead. She gave up her whole life because you promised me she would be safe. If she dies on the street tonight, I swear to God, Miller, I will come to your house and kill you myself. Dong-soo hung up the phone. He didn't wait for an answer. He threw the plastic phone onto the passenger seat. He shoved his key into the ignition. The engine roared to life loudly in the quiet night. He slammed his foot on the gas pedal. The back tires spun wildly on the ice for a second before they finally caught the road. The car shot forward into the blinding snow. He drove like a madman. He ran 3 red lights. He almost crashed into a snowplow on the highway. He didn't care. He had to get back to that crosswalk. It took him 30 minutes to get back to Michigan Avenue. The storm was much worse now. The wind was howling down the empty streets, blowing huge drifts of snow against the buildings. He slammed on the brakes. The car slid sideways and slammed hard into the curb, scratching the expensive rims. Dong-soo didn't even turn off the engine. He kicked his door open and ran out into the street. The corner was empty. Adesuwa, he yelled. The wind swallowed his voice instantly. He ran to the exact spot where she had been standing. The street lamp cast a nasty orange light over the snow. He looked down at the ground. The snow had covered almost everything, but he saw a brown corner sticking out of the white slush. He dropped to his knees. He ignored the freezing water soaking right through his expensive pants. He dug his bare hands into the freezing slush and pulled out a wet piece of cardboard. He held it up to the light. The black marker was smeared from the water, but he could still read the words. Please help, I am so hungry. He took everything, God bless you. A heavy tear fell from Dong-soo's eye. It landed on the wet cardboard. He folded the piece of trash carefully and put it into his coat pocket next to his gun. He stood up. He looked around wildly. He needed to find her tracks. But the snow was falling so fast, any footprints were completely gone. He ran toward the dark alley where she had disappeared. The alley smelled like rotting garbage and old pee. It was completely pitch black. Suwa, he called out. His voice echoed off the dirty brick walls. Suwa, please, it's me. Nothing, just the sound of the wind. He walked deeper into the alley, pulling his gun out of his holster. His finger rested perfectly on the trigger. If anyone was hiding in the dark, he was going to shoot them. He kicked open cardboard boxes. He looked behind metal dumpsters. Near the end of the alley, he saw a pile of dirty blankets moving. He ran over and pulled the blanket back with his free hand. It wasn't her. It was an old man with a long gray beard. The man screamed and threw his hands up to protect his face. Don't hit me. I ain't got nothing. Dong-soo put his gun away fast. He reached into his pants pocket and pulled out a thick roll of cash. He peeled off $300 bills and shoved them right into the old man's dirty hands. I am not going to hurt you, Dong-soo said. He was breathing so fast his chest hurt. Listen to me. A woman was out there on the corner an hour ago. Black woman, beautiful, wearing a gray blanket. She had a bad bruise on her face. Did you see where she went? The old man looked at the money in total shock. Then he looked up at Dong-soo. He licked his cracked lips. Yeah, I saw her. She came running through here crying like a baby, slipped on the ice right there, banged her knee up real bad. Dong-soo felt his heart drop. Where did she go? The old man pointed a shaking, dirty finger toward the end of the alley. She went down into the lower tunnels, the old subway tracks. A lot of folks go down there when the storms get bad, but you gotta be careful, mister. The bad ones live down there, the ones who like to cut people. Thank you, Dong-soo said. He turned and ran toward the end of the alley. He didn't care about the bad men in the tunnels. He didn't care about his cover anymore. He didn't care about Roman or the FBI. He was going down into the dark, and he was going to tear the entire city apart until he found her. The freezing wind died down the second Dong-soo stepped into the gaping black hole at the end of the alley. It was an old maintenance entrance for the subway tunnels. The metal gate was completely rusted and broken off its hinges. As soon as he walked inside, the smell hit him like a physical punch. It smelled like old piss, wet stray dogs, and rotting trash. The total darkness swallowed him up. Dong-soo reached into his left coat pocket and pulled out a small tactical flashlight. He clicked the button. A thin, bright white beam of light cut through the heavy dark. He kept his gun raised high in his right hand. Water dripped loudly from the curved concrete ceiling. Drip, drip, drip. The sound echoed down the long, empty tunnel. He stepped carefully over empty glass beer bottles and dirty used needles. His heart was beating so hard and fast it actually hurt his ribs. He had to find her. He had to find her before the cold killed her, or worse, before someone down here found her first. He walked fast for maybe 10 minutes. The cold down in these tunnels was different from the snowstorm above. It was a wet, heavy cold that sank right through his expensive clothes and deep into his bones. Up ahead in the distance, he saw a flickering orange light. It was a fire burning inside a rusty metal trash can. 3 men were standing around the fire, holding their hands out to get warm. They looked rough and dangerous. They wore dirty, thick winter coats and had dark scars on their faces. One of the men, a huge guy with a messy beard, was holding a long, heavy metal pipe. They stopped talking immediately when they saw Dong-soo's bright flashlight shining on them. "Turn that bright shit off," the biggest man barked loudly. He stepped away from the fire and blocked the path. He looked at Dong-soo's clean wool coat and expensive leather shoes. A nasty smile spread across his face. "You lost, pretty boy. This ain't a place for rich men taking a walk." Dong-soo did not turn off the light. He aimed the bright beam right into the big man's eyes, blinding him. "I am looking for a woman," Dong-soo said. His voice was completely flat and dead. "Black woman, wearing a gray blanket. She came down here about 20 minutes ago." The 3 men looked at each other. They smiled sick, ugly smiles. "Oh, you mean the fresh meat," a skinny man with bad teeth laughed. He spit on the floor. "Yeah, we saw her. She was crying real bad. She went down the east tunnel over there. But you gotta pay the toll to go that way, boss." The big man raised the heavy metal pipe and slapped it into his open hand. "Give us the fancy watch and the wallet. Now, or we break your rich head open and take your clothes too." Dong-soo didn't even blink. He did not have time for the stupid shit. Adesuwa was freezing to death. He raised his gun, aimed slightly down, and pulled the trigger. Bang! The loud gunshot echoed down the concrete tunnels like a massive bomb. A flash of fire lit up the dark. Dong-soo shot the big man right in the left kneecap. The man dropped the metal pipe instantly. He let out a horrible, high-pitched scream and crashed to the dirty floor. He grabbed his bleeding leg, rolling around in a puddle of gross water, crying like a baby. The other 2 men completely froze in pure shock. Their eyes were wide with terror. Dong-soo walked forward fast. He grabbed the skinny man by his dirty coat collar, slammed him hard against the brick wall, and shoved the hot barrel of the gun right up under his chin. "Where exactly is she?" Dong-soo whispered. His voice was so cold it made the skinny man shake. "East Tunnel, end of the line, by the old water pumps." The skinny man cried out loud. He threw his hands straight up in the air. "She's hiding back there behind the trash. We didn't touch her, man. I swear to God we didn't touch her." Dong-soo threw the man to the ground hard. He pointed the gun at the 3rd man, who was backing away slowly with his hands up. "If I see any of you again," Dong-soo promised, "I will shoot you in the head." He didn't wait for an answer. He turned and ran down the dark east tunnel. The floor here was covered in slippery black mud and freezing water. The tunnel got narrower and much darker. The smell of old mold was so strong he wanted to throw up. He ran until his chest burned. Then he heard a sound. It was a quiet, shaky breathing. Someone was crying very softly. Dong-soo slowed down his steps. He pointed his flashlight at the ground so the bright light wouldn't scare her. He walked on his toes so his shoes wouldn't make any loud splashing sounds. At the very end of the tunnel, there was a dead end. It was filled with old wooden train blocks and broken pieces of concrete. In the very corner, squeezed tightly between the freezing, wet wall and a huge pile of trash, was a dirty gray blanket. He stopped 10 feet away. His hands were shaking. He slowly put his gun back into his shoulder holster under his coat. He took a deep, shaky breath. "Suwa," he whispered. The gray blanket jerked hard. Adesuwa pulled the top of the blanket down just enough to peek out. When she saw him standing there in the dim light, she let out a sound that broke Dong-soo's heart into a million tiny pieces. It was a sharp squeak of pure, absolute terror. She sounded exactly like a trapped, dying animal. She scrambled backward like crazy, hitting her back hard against the solid concrete wall. There was nowhere else for her to go. "No, no, no, please," she begged loudly. She put her shaking hands over her face. She was crying so hard she was choking on her own spit. "Please don't hurt me. I won't tell anyone I saw you. I swear to God, Dong-soo, I don't know anything. Please let me go." Dong-soo dropped straight down to his knees in the dirty, freezing water. The ice water soaked right through his pants, but he didn't care. He threw his flashlight to the side so it hit the wall. The light bounced off the bricks, giving them just enough light to see each other. "Suwa, baby, look at me," Dong-soo pleaded. "Look at me." "Don't touch me," she screamed at the top of her lungs. She reached blindly into the trash pile next to her and grabbed a long, sharp piece of broken green glass. She held it up with a badly shaking hand, pointing the sharp end right at him. "Stay the fuck away from me. You called me a whore. You looked right at me in the snow and let those men laugh at me." "I had to," he yelled back. His voice cracked hard. Hot tears finally spilled over his eyelashes and rolled down his cold face. "I had to do it, Suwa. Those men are monsters. They are part of a huge cartel. The fat guy in the front seat was going to grab you, throw you in the trunk, and sell you as a slave. If I showed them I knew you, if I showed them I loved you, they would have shot you right there on the frozen street. And then they would have shot me too. I had to make them think you were garbage, so they would leave you alone." Adesuwa stopped screaming, but she kept the sharp glass pointed directly at his chest. Her chest was moving up and down so fast she looked like she was going to pass out. She looked at his tears. She looked at his expensive pants soaking in the filthy subway puddle. "You're dead," she whispered. Her voice was totally broken and raspy. "Agent Miller came to my house 2 years ago. He gave me your police badge. He said your car flipped over on the highway and caught on fire. He said there was nothing left. I had a funeral for you. I bought a black dress. I cried until I threw up. I buried an empty box in the dirt, Dong-soo." "It was a complete lie," Dong-soo said softly. He kept his hands open and empty to show he wasn't going to grab her. He slowly crawled forward on his wet knees, just 1 inch at a time. "It was the only way to keep you safe. I had to go deep undercover to stop Roman's human trafficking ring. The cartel had dirty cops everywhere. If they knew you were my fiancé, they would have kidnapped you and tortured you to get to me. Miller hid you in witness protection to save your life. I didn't want to die to you, baby. I fought Miller on it. I punched him in the face. I begged him to let me tell you, but it was the only way to make sure you lived." Adesuwa stared at him in the dim light. The piece of glass in her hand started to lower just a tiny bit. She looked at his eyes. She was searching for the man she used to love. You are undercover," she asked. "Yes," he swore. He was only 2 feet away from her now. He could really see how bad she looked. Her lips were completely blue from the cold. The dark bruise on her cheek was swollen and ugly. Her fingers holding the glass were cut and bleeding. "I am still a cop. I am still your Dong-soo. That woman sitting next to me in the car? She means absolutely nothing. She is the boss's sister. I am just playing a part. I swear on my life." Adesuwa looked at his face for 10 long seconds. Then, she dropped the broken glass. It hit the wet concrete floor with a soft clink. She wrapped her thin arms tightly around her own chest and started to sob. These were deep, ugly, painful sobs that shook her entire body. "They found me, Dong-soo," she cried, rocking back and forth. 3 days ago, I was safe in Omaha. But 2 men kicked my apartment door down in the middle of the night. They shot my dog, they beat me. She reached up and touched the bad bruise on her face. They put a bag over my head. They put me in the back of a freezing van and drove for 2 whole days. I don't even know how I got away. The van crashed in the bad snowstorm this morning on the highway. The back doors popped open. I just ran. I ran into the city and I've been hiding all day. I'm so cold, Dong-soo. I'm so fucking cold. Dong-soo couldn't wait another second. He closed the distance between them and wrapped his strong arms completely around her. She flinched for a split second, but then she collapsed into him. She buried her face deep into his expensive, warm wool coat. She grabbed bunches of his shirt in her fists and held on like he was a life raft in the middle of the ocean. She was so terribly thin, she felt like she was made of fragile little sticks. Dong-soo buried his face into her dirty, matted hair. He didn't care about the awful smell of the garbage. He didn't care about the dirt covering her skin. He kissed the top of her head over and over again. He rocked her back and forth in the freezing water. "I got you," he whispered right into her ear. His own tears were soaking into her hood. "I got you, baby. I am so sorry. I am so fucking sorry." They sat there on the floor of the subway tunnel for a long time, just holding each other in the dark. But Dong-soo knew they didn't have much time. He was supposed to call Roman in 30 minutes. If he didn't call, Roman would send men to look for him. He couldn't take Adesuwa back to his undercover apartment. The cartel watched his building. And he couldn't call Agent Miller, because if the cartel found Adesuwa in Omaha, that meant someone inside the FBI had sold her out. The mole was still there. They were completely alone. Dong-soo gently pulled back. He took off his thick, heavy wool coat and wrapped it tightly around Adesuwa's shaking shoulders. It was way too big for her, but it was warm. "Listen to me, Suwa," he said. He grabbed her cold face with both his hands and made her look at him. "We have to move right now. I have a burner car parked a few blocks away. It has a heater, but we cannot trust anyone. Not the police, not the FBI. Someone inside the government gave your address to the cartel." Adesuwa's eyes went wide with fresh fear. "Then where do we go? If they know who I am, they will find us." Dong-soo's face turned completely hard. The loving boyfriend was gone. The hardened undercover agent was back. "They won't find us," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Because we are not going to hide. We are going to kill them all." Dong-soo stood up slowly from the wet concrete floor. The freezing, dirty water dripped down his pants and ruined his expensive leather shoes. He reached down and offered his hand to Adesuwa. She looked at his hand for a long time before she finally took it. Her fingers felt like pure ice. He pulled her up gently, but as soon as she put weight on her right leg, she let out a sharp gasp and started to fall. Dong-soo caught her instantly. He wrapped his arm tight around her waist. "Your knee," he said softly. "The old man in the alley said you fell hard on the ice." "It hurts real bad," she whispered. Her teeth were chattering so fast she could barely speak the words. "I think it is twisted." "Okay, hold on to my neck," he told her. Before she could argue, he bent down and scooped her up into his arms. She was so light it actually scared him. She weighed almost nothing. 2 years ago, she had been strong and healthy. Now, she felt like a broken little bird. She wrapped her thin arms around his neck and buried her face into the collar of his shirt. He could feel her whole body shaking violently against his chest. He carried her out of the dark east tunnel. His boots made loud splashing sounds in the deep mud. He kept his eyes locked straight ahead. He didn't use the flashlight anymore. He let his eyes adjust to the dim light coming from the trash can fire up ahead. When they got back to the main tunnel, the 3 men were still there. The huge man with the beard was sitting against the brick wall, holding his bleeding leg and groaning loud. The skinny man and the other guy were standing far back in the shadows, looking absolutely terrified. When they saw Dong-soo walking out with the woman in his arms, the skinny man threw his hands up to cover his face. He pressed his back flat against the dirty bricks. Dong-soo didn't even look at them. He walked right past the fire. His face was set in stone, but inside his blood was boiling. He wanted to stop. He wanted to pull out his gun and put a bullet in all 3 of their heads just for being in the same dark tunnel as her. But he kept walking. He had to get her warm. They reached the rusted metal gate at the end of the alley. The wind was howling outside. The snowstorm had gotten much worse while they were underground. The snow was falling in thick, heavy sheets of pure white. "Put your head under the coat," Dong-soo ordered softly. He pulled the thick wool collar up to cover her cold ears. He stepped out into the freezing wind. The cold hit him so hard his lungs actually burned. Without his heavy coat, the wind cut right through his thin dress shirt. He gritted his teeth and started walking down the empty alley. The snow was already up to his ankles. He walked for 3 long blocks. He stayed in the dark shadows behind the tall buildings. He didn't want any stray police cars or random late-night drivers to see a man carrying a woman wrapped in a blanket. Finally, he reached a narrow, dark parking lot behind a closed grocery store. Sitting in the very back corner was an old, ugly gray Honda. The car was completely covered in a fresh layer of snow. It was Dong-soo's personal burner car. It had no tracking devices. It wasn't registered under his real name or his fake cartel name. He shifted Adesuwa in his arms and pulled a simple silver key out of his front pocket. He unlocked the passenger door and pulled it open. "Get in," he said quietly. He set her down gently on the cheap cloth seat. Adesuwa pulled her legs inside and curled up into a tiny ball. She kept his heavy wool coat wrapped tight around her whole body. Dong-soo slammed the door shut. He ran around the front of the car, wiping the heavy snow off the windshield with his bare, freezing hands. His skin was turning red and numb, but he didn't care. He jumped into the driver's seat and shoved the key into the ignition. The old engine coughed twice, then roared to life. He cranked the heater dial all the way up to maximum. At first, only cold air blew out of the vents. "Give it a minute," he told her. His own teeth were starting to chatter now. "It will get hot soon." Adesuwa didn't say anything. She just stared out the dark window. Her breathing was fast and shallow. Dong-soo looked at the green clock glowing on the dashboard. It was 11:30 at night. His heart dropped into his stomach. He was supposed to call Roman. He only had 5 minutes left before Roman would start sending men in black SUVs to look for him on the South Highway. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his expensive smartphone, the one the cartel gave him. "Suwa, look at me," he said. His voice was suddenly very serious. She turned her head slowly. Her eyes looked dead and exhausted. "I have to make a phone call right now," he explained. He kept his voice perfectly calm. "I have to call the boss. If I don't call him, they will know I am lying. They will go crazy looking for me. I need you to be completely quiet. Do not make a single sound. Do you understand?" She swallowed hard and nodded her head once. The heater finally started blowing warm air. The smell of the dirty subway tunnel filled the small car, but the heat felt amazing. Dong-soo took a deep breath. He had to change his brain completely. He had to stop being the desperate man who just found his dead fiancé. He had to become Kang Dong-soo, the cold, smart, ruthless money man. He closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, his face was totally blank. He hit the speed dial button and put the phone to his ear. It rang 3 times. "Yeah," Roman's rough, deep voice answered. Dong-soo let out a loud, heavy sigh. He made himself sound tired and annoyed. "It's a total mess out here, boss." Adesuwa watched his face. Her eyes went a little wide. She heard his voice change. It wasn't soft and loving anymore. It was hard, lazy, and arrogant. "What do you mean?" Roman asked on the phone. "Is the road blocked?" "Worse," Dong-soo lied smoothly. He leaned back in his seat and steered the steering wheel with 1 finger. "The state cops are everywhere. The snow is so bad they set up a massive checkpoint right on the south ramp. I saw 4 police cruisers sitting under the bridge with their lights off. They are pulling over every single big truck to check their tires and look at their cargo papers." Roman cursed loudly into the phone. "Fuck, are you completely sure, D?" "I just drove right past them," Dong-soo said. He made his voice sound a little angry. "If you send those trucks out tonight, the cops will pop the back doors open. They will find the girls. The whole operation will be on the morning news by 6 o'clock. You want to risk millions of dollars because you are impatient." Roman went silent for a few seconds. Dong-soo could hear the faint sound of music playing in the background. Roman was probably back at his private club. "Fine," Roman finally growled. "You are right, we don't risk it. We hold the cargo until tomorrow night. The storm is supposed to clear up by noon. I will tell the buyers in Canada there is a weather delay. They will have to wait. Smart move, Dong-soo said. Get your ass back to the club, Roman ordered. Elena is driving me crazy. She keeps asking where you are. Come have a drink and we will look at the new shipping routes for tomorrow. Dong-soo looked over at Adesuwa. She was staring at him with a look of pure shock and a little bit of fear. The roads are pure ice, boss, Dong-soo said smoothly. It's going to take me at least an hour to drive back to the city safely. Tell Elena to order me a double whiskey. I'll be there soon. Drive safe. Don't wreck that nice car. Roman laughed an ugly laugh. He hung up the phone. Dong-soo pulled the phone away from his ear. He pressed the power button and held it down until the screen went completely black. Then he threw the phone into the back seat. The small gray car was quiet again. The only sound was the heater blowing hot air out of the plastic vents. Adesuwa pulled the coat tighter around her neck. She looked at Dong-soo like he was a complete stranger. You sound just like them, she whispered. Her voice was shaking, but not from the cold this time. You talk about people like they are cargo. You talk to that monster like he is your best friend. Dong-soo felt a sharp, heavy pain in his chest. He hated that she had to see this side of him. He hated that she had to hear the ugly words he used to survive. He turned his body to face her. I have to sound like them, he said. His voice was soft again, gentle. I have been living with them for 2 whole years, Suwa. I eat at their tables. I drink their liquor. I sit in their meetings while they put price tags on human beings. If I don't sound exactly like them, they put a bullet in the back of my head. And that woman, Adesuwa asked. A single hot tear rolled down her dirty cheek. Elena, she is your girlfriend. Dong-soo reached out slowly. He didn't want to scare her. He gently wiped the tear off her cheek with his thumb. Her skin was so dry and cold. She is nothing. She is my ticket to the boss. I pretend to care about her so Roman trusts me with his money. That is all. I have never loved anyone but you. Adesuwa closed her eyes. She leaned her head back against the seat and let out a long, broken breath. They shot my dog, Dong-soo. Buster. He tried to bite the man who kicked my door down, and they just shot him right in the head. He was a good dog. Dong-soo felt the rage flare up hot and bright in his stomach again. I know, baby. I am so sorry. What are we going to do? She asked softly. She opened her eyes and looked out the snowy window. They know I am alive. The FBI told them where I lived. There is nowhere left to hide. We are not hiding, Dong-soo said. He put the car in drive. He stepped on the gas pedal, and the old Honda slowly rolled out of the dark parking lot onto the empty, snowy street. I am going to take you somewhere safe first. A place the cartel doesn't know about. A place the FBI doesn't know about. And then what? She asked. Dong-soo stared out the windshield into the blinding white snow. His hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned totally white. And then, Dong-soo said, his voice dropping to a dark, deadly whisper, I am going to go to that club. I am going to walk right into Roman's private room, and I am going to burn his entire world to the ground. The old gray Honda drove slowly through the heavy white snow. The streets of Chicago were completely empty. It looked like a ghost town. The heater in the car was blasting hot air, but Adesuwa was still shaking. She had her knees pulled tight to her chest. She stared out the window, watching the dark buildings pass by. Dong-soo drove with one hand on the steering wheel. He kept checking his rearview mirror every 10 seconds. He was looking for headlights. He was looking for black SUVs. He was looking for anyone following them. But there was nothing behind them except the deep tire tracks filling up with fresh snow. Where are we going? Adesuwa finally asked. Her voice was very quiet and raspy. You said there is a safe place, but the FBI knew where I lived in Omaha. They knew my fake name. They knew my fake job. This place is not in any file, Dong-soo said. He kept his eyes fixed on the icy road. It is an old, empty car repair shop on the far west side of the city. I rented it a year ago. I used a fake name that even Agent Miller doesn't know. I paid for 2 years of rent in straight cash. The cartel doesn't know about it. The FBI doesn't know about it. It is just a concrete box in a bad neighborhood. Adesuwa rested her head against the cold glass of the window. Are you really going to go back to that club tonight? Yes, Dong-soo said. His voice left no room for arguing. Roman has 60 men working for him in this city. If I just take you and run away, they will never stop hunting us. The boss will put $1 million price on our heads. The dirty FBI agents will help him look for us. The only way we get to live is if Roman dies tonight. I have to cut the head off the snake." Adesuwa didn't say anything else. She just closed her eyes and pulled his heavy wool coat tighter around her thin body. They drove for another 20 minutes. The buildings got older and dirtier. The streetlights were mostly broken. Finally, Dong-soo turned down a narrow dirt alley behind a row of empty brick warehouses. He stopped the car in front of a wide, rusted metal garage door. "Stay in the car," he told her. He left the engine running to keep the heat on. He stepped out into the freezing snow. The wind was still blowing hard. He walked up to the metal door, pulled a heavy set of keys from his pocket, and unlocked 3 thick padlocks. He grabbed the handle and pulled the heavy door up. The metal track screamed a loud, ugly noise. Inside, it was completely pitch black. Dong-soo got back in the car and drove it straight into the dark garage. He left the headlights on. He got out again, pulled the heavy metal door back down, and locked it from the inside. They were totally boxed in. No one could see the car. No one could see the light. He walked over to the concrete wall and flipped a heavy switch. 6 long fluorescent lights buzzed loudly on the high ceiling. They flickered a few times before glowing a harsh, bright white. The garage was huge and mostly empty. There was a rusted car lift in the middle of the floor, covered in old black grease. Against the back wall, there were stacks of old, bald tires and heavy red toolboxes. It smelled strongly of motor oil, old dirt, and cheap dust. In the very back corner, there was a small wooden door with dirty glass. That was the office. Dong-soo walked to the passenger side of the car and opened the door. Adesuwa looked out at the dirty garage. She looked terrified again. "It is okay," he said softly. He held his hands out to her. "It is not pretty, but it has thick walls. Come on, let's get you inside the office. There is a space heater and a sink." She tried to stand up by herself, but as soon as her right foot hit the concrete floor, her knee gave out completely. She let out a sharp cry of pain and started to fall forward. Dong-soo caught her easily. He wrapped his arms around her and lifted her right up against his chest. She grabbed his shirt tightly. She felt so incredibly fragile. He carried her across the dirty concrete floor and pushed the wooden office door open with his foot. The office was small and cramped. It had a cheap metal desk, a plastic chair, and a small cot shoved against the wall. Next to the desk was a dirty white sink. Dong-soo walked over to the cot and gently set Adesuwa down. She kept her good leg on the floor, but stretched her bad leg out straight on the thin mattress. "I have to look at your knee," he said. He knelt down on the floor in front of her. "No," she said quickly. She tried to pull her leg away, but it hurt too much. She hissed in pain. "It's fine, it's just a bruise." "Suwa," he said. He looked right into her dark brown eyes. "I am not going to hurt you, but I need to see how bad it is. If it is broken, I have to wrap it tight before I leave." She stared at him for a long time. She was looking at his slicked-back black hair, his expensive dark clothes, and his hard face. She was trying to find the man she loved underneath the cartel disguise. Finally, she gave a tiny nod. Dong-soo carefully rolled up the bottom of her dirty, wet sweatpants. Her skin was freezing cold. When he pushed the fabric up past her knee, he felt a sick feeling hit his stomach. Her knee was swollen to twice its normal size. It was a dark, angry mix of purple, black, and ugly yellow. There was a deep, bleeding cut right in the middle where she had hit the sharp ice in the alley. "Shit," he whispered. He gently touched the skin around the swelling. Adesuwa flinched hard and dug her fingernails into the cot. "It is not broken," he told her. "But it is a really bad sprain. You cannot walk on this at all." He stood up and walked over to the metal desk. He opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a large red plastic first aid box. He set it on the desk and opened it. He pulled out a bottle of rubbing alcohol, a stack of white cotton pads, a tube of antibiotic cream, and a long roll of brown bandage wrap. He walked to the sink and turned the metal handles. The pipes groaned loudly, and then thick, brown water spit out of the faucet. After a few seconds, the water turned mostly clear. He tested it with his fingers. It was freezing cold. He grabbed a clean white towel from a shelf above the sink and ran it under the water. He walked back over to Adesuwa and knelt down again. "This is going to be cold," he warned her. He took the wet towel and started to clean her knee. He wiped away the dark, freezing mud from the alley. He wiped away the dried blood from the cut. He was moving his hands so slowly, being as careful as humanly possible. Adesuwa watched his hands. She watched how gentle he was being. "Why did you do it?" she asked suddenly. Her voice cut right through the quiet room. Dong-soo stopped wiping her knee. He looked up at her face. "Why did I do what?" "Why did you fake your death?" she asked. The anger was coming back into her voice now. "You said the cartel had dirty cops. You said they would find me, but why didn't you just take me with you? Why didn't you tell me we had to run? We could have gone to another country. We could have changed our names together." Dong-soo let out a long, heavy breath. He looked down at the wet towel in his hands. "Because you did not deserve to live like a rat, Suwa. You were 24 years old. You were going to nursing school. You had a whole beautiful life ahead of you. If you ran away with me, you would have spent the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. You would never sleep. You would always be waiting for the door to get kicked in." "My door got kicked in anyway," she yelled at him. Fresh tears spilled out of her eyes. "They kicked my door in 3 days ago. They shot Buster. They beat me and dragged me into a van with a bag over my head. The cartel found me anyway, Dong-soo, and I had to go through all of that thinking the man I loved was a pile of ashes in a graveyard." Dong-soo dropped the wet towel onto the floor. He leaned forward and put his face in his hands. He felt completely empty. He felt like the worst piece of shit on the entire planet. "I know," he said. His voice was muffled behind his hands. "I know, it was my fault. I trusted the FBI. I trusted Agent Miller. He promised me the witness protection program was completely unbreakable. He swore on his own life that no one would ever find you. I made a deal with the devil to keep you safe, and the devil lied to me." Adesuwa wiped her nose with the back of her dirty sleeve. "So what have you been doing for 2 years? While I was crying in a fake apartment in Omaha, what were you doing?" Dong-soo slowly lowered his hands. He looked at her. He didn't want to tell her the truth. He didn't want her to know what kind of monster he had to become, but he owed her everything. "I became the cartel's money man," he said quietly. "I moved to Chicago. I started hanging out at the underground casinos. I let them think I was a dirty, rich kid from Korea who knew how to wash money through fake businesses. I made friends with the worst people on earth. I watched them beat people half to death. I watched them put young girls into metal cages. And I sat there, and I drank expensive whiskey, and I smiled, and I helped them hide the money they made from doing it." Adesuwa stared at him. She looked completely disgusted. "You helped them sell people." "I never touched a single girl," he swore quickly. He grabbed the side of the cot. "I only handled the money. And every time I got an account number, every time I got a name of a buyer, I secretly passed it to Agent Miller. We have been building a massive case. We have enough evidence to put Roman and all of his buyers in federal prison for the rest of their lives. The big raid was supposed to happen this Sunday." "Sunday," she repeated. "And what about the girls in the cages right now?" "Miller said we had to wait," Dong-soo growled. He felt the anger heating up his blood again. "He said if we bust the warehouse too early, the big buyers in Canada will get away. He told me to just keep smiling and let the shipments go through so we could catch everyone at once." "He told you to let them be sold," she said. Her voice was full of sick horror. "Yes," Dong-soo said. "That is how the Bureau works. They play the long game, but after tonight, after I saw you on that corner, the game is over. Fuck the FBI, fuck the big raid." He picked up the bottle of rubbing alcohol. He twisted the plastic cap off. "This is going to burn a lot. I have to clean the cut on your knee so it doesn't get infected." Adesuwa grabbed the metal edge of the cot with both hands. She nodded. Dong-soo poured the clear liquid onto a white cotton pad. He pressed it directly onto the open cut on her swollen knee. Adesuwa screamed. She squeezed her eyes shut and kicked her good leg against the side of the desk. The pain was sharp and blinding. "Fuck, stop, it hurts." "I'm sorry," Dong-soo kept saying. "I'm sorry, baby, it's almost done." He held her bad leg perfectly still with his left hand while he wiped the dirt and blood out of the wound. When it was completely clean, he threw the bloody cotton pad onto the floor. He opened the tube of antibiotic cream and rubbed a thick layer over the cut. Then he picked up the brown bandage wrap. He wrapped it tightly around her knee, pulling it hard to give the joint some support. He tied the end into a tight knot. "There," he said. He sat back on his heels. "Keep it straight, don't try to walk on it." Adesuwa was breathing hard. The tears were still falling down her face, but she wasn't looking at her knee. She was looking at his face. She reached her shaking hand out and touched his cheek. Dong-soo completely froze. Her fingers were so cold, but her touch felt like a heavy shock of electricity. He leaned his face into her dirty palm. He closed his eyes. "You look older," she whispered. She rubbed her thumb over his cheekbone. "Your eyes look so dead now." "They are," he agreed softly. "I had to kill every good part of myself to survive in that room with Roman. I had to forget what the sun looked like." She moved her hand down to his neck. She felt his fast pulse beating against his skin. "That woman in the car, Elena, she touched your leg. She called you baby." Dong-soo opened his eyes. He reached up and gently grabbed her hand, wrapping his warm fingers around hers. "She is Roman's little sister. I made her think I was in love with her. It was the fastest way to get close to the boss. Roman trusts her, so he started trusting me, but I never slept with her. I swear to God, Suwa, I never touched her like that. Every time she got close to me, I thought about you. I thought about the smell of your hair. I thought about the way you used to laugh when I burned dinner in our tiny apartment." Adesuwa pulled her hand away slowly. She looked down at her lap. "I don't know who you are anymore, Dong-soo. The man I loved was a good cop. He wanted to help people. He would never sit in a room while girls got locked in cages." The words hit him like a heavy baseball bat swinging right into his chest. He knew she was right. He knew he was dirty. He knew the things he had done for the last 2 years could never be washed off. "I know," he said. His voice was completely broken. "I know I am a monster now, but I am a monster who is going to make sure you live to see tomorrow. That is all that matters." He stood up from the floor. He walked over to a tall metal locker in the corner of the office. He pulled it open. Inside the locker was a heavy black duffel bag. He grabbed the thick handles and threw the bag onto the metal desk with a loud thud. He unzipped the bag. Inside was a small army of weapons. There was a black tactical vest, 2 heavy Glock 19 handguns, a pump-action shotgun, and boxes of extra bullets. Adesuwa stared at the bag. Her eyes got huge. "What are you doing?" "I am getting ready for work," Dong-soo said. His face was completely hard again. The emotional, crying man was gone. He was back in the zone. He was preparing for war. He pulled the heavy black vest out of the bag and pulled it over his head. He strapped it tight across his chest. He pulled his dress shirt off, throwing it on the floor, and put on a tight black long-sleeve shirt under the vest. "You are going there right now?" she asked. Her voice started to shake with panic. "By yourself? Dong-soo, you said Roman has 60 men. You can't just walk into his club alone. They will kill you." "Most of his men are at the warehouse guarding the cages," Dong-soo explained calmly. He picked up one of the Glock handguns. He pulled the slide back to check the chamber. A bright brass bullet popped out and hit the desk. He caught it and pushed it back into the magazine. "Roman is at his private club downtown. He keeps about 10 guys there. His personal guards. I know the layout of the building. I know where every single camera is. I know where the security guards stand." "It's a suicide mission," she cried out. She tried to sit up higher on the cot. "Don't go, please. Call the police, call the regular cops, tell them everything." Dong-soo stopped loading the gun. He looked at her. "If I call the regular police, the dirty cops on Roman's payroll will hear the radio call. They will warn him. He will pack his bags, grab Alina, and disappear on a private jet before the first police car even gets to the club. And then, he will spend the rest of his life paying assassins to hunt us down. He has to die tonight, Suwa. It is the only way this ends." He walked over to her. He held out the other heavy black Glock. "Take this." Adesuwa shrank back against the wall. She looked at the gun like it was a poisonous snake. "I don't know how to shoot a gun. I hate guns." "Take it," he ordered. His voice was loud and harsh. It made her jump. He grabbed her right hand and slapped the heavy metal grip of the gun right into her palm. He closed her fingers around it. "You point it at the door. You keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to shoot. If anyone opens that garage door, and it is not me, you pull the trigger as fast as you can. Do you understand me?" She was shaking violently. The gun was heavy in her hand. "What if you don't come back?" she whispered. A fresh tear fell onto her dirty cheek. "What if they kill you?" Dong-soo leaned down. He put his hands on both sides of her face. He didn't care about the dirt or the sweat. He leaned in and kissed her softly on the forehead. If I am not back by sunrise, he said softly, you take this gun. You shoot the padlock off the inside of the garage door, you get in the car and you drive south. You drive until you run out of gas and then you steal another car and keep driving. Do not call the police. Do not call the FBI, just run. He stood up tall. He grabbed the pump-action shotgun from the desk and strapped it across his back. He shoved 3 extra magazines of bullets into his tactical vest. He walked to the office door. He turned around and looked at her one last time. She looked so small sitting on that tiny cot holding the massive gun. Lock this door behind me, he said. Then he turned around and walked out into the dark garage. He didn't look back. He couldn't look back. If he kept looking at her, he would never leave. He walked to a small side door that led out into the snowy alley. He pushed it open. The freezing wind screamed in his face. The snow was falling harder than ever. It was a perfect night for killing. Nobody would hear the gunshots over the storm. Nobody would see the blood on the dark ice. Kang Dong-soo stepped out into the blizzard, racking the shotgun with a loud, heavy crack. It was time to end the empire.